think we're okay. Perfect. We are launched. Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia Fisher. I'm from the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center as the Prevention Education Supervisor. And today we are talking about that KSAC texting line. That is right. We're talking about the texting line. And I thought, who else better to invite into this conversation than the person who is coordinating it herself? So without further ado, please welcome Tracey to the conversation, the Crisis Service Coordinator. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. You always do such fantastic interviews. So I'm really happy to be here and talk about this, one more service amongst the many that KSAC is launching.
Definitely. We really saw a big demand in texting, and you've been brought on to run the texting line. So why do you think having a phone line, a web chat line, and now a texting line is important to have?
I think in terms of like accessibility is a big word that stands out to me. And a lot of people that work in our field, sexual assault, violence against women centers, are seeing an increase in the number of people reaching out for support because especially if they're living with people they don't feel safe with. So that texting and web chat allows people to not have to talk out loud, so whoever they're living with can hear them. So it gives that extra avenue. And then, we are finding, the counselors here were finding that youth especially would wait till their parents went to bed if they were living in a not so safe household to reach out. And we know that youth prefer texting, right? Over talking. And a lot of people do. I have friends that would prefer to text than call still. So I think that accessibility to have all of those avenues of support. And the great thing about the text is we know not everyone has data, not everyone is near the internet on their phone, but so the text line gives us space to reach out and text for that support, especially for people that may not have the internet or data on their phone to access our web chat.
Definitely. Like, I guess, compared to some people would say that I'm part of this youth generation. And to me, I would much rather text someone and then potentially reach out for more vocal kind of support. Right. Like, I would rather almost practice in a way with texting. And, with texting, it also gives you time to think about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. It's just with texting, one word could have so many meanings, like LOL, for example, right? Like, are you LOLing because you're laughing? Are you LOLing because you're agreeing? Are you LOLing because, maybe you said something funny yourself or you made a spelling mistake? And so something as simple as LOL or even an emoticon can have so many meanings for the texting. Now, I know you've been doing some of the training. Have you been training on how to use the proper emojis?
Yeah, so the volunteers we're starting with are people that have had experience on the web chat. So they are experienced with that, but certainly with when we're training new volunteers on it, we'll talk about the difference between when you talk, you can hear people's tone of voice. And that is helpful. And then, of course, when you're face-to-face in a counseling session or a support session, you can see that body language. But you make a good point, like with chat, people typing or just texting in. So we will be training our volunteers to look for keywords, right? We had a chat come in yesterday, and it was good training because, we were able to pick out keywords that would indicate what specifically that chatter would need or what they were struggling with. So you're trained to look for the words, right, rather than the facial expressions or the tone of voice. But certainly the emoticons can help if they're used correctly.
Definitely. And we were in the transition process now, like literally in like the last steps to getting this launched 24 hours a day?
Right.
Currently it's available through the weekday, Monday to Friday, 9:30 to 4:30. But
Hmm.
why is that, like we've seen Lisa advocating, and really our center has been advocating for this 24-hour texting line. Why is 24 hours so necessary for survivors?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, myself, I've worked in the violence against women sector for a few years now, and I was at a violence against women's shelter. So we know that because we're a trauma-informed center, we know that people have been through trauma. You know, survivors of sexual assault and violence, or any form of violence, it often can be hard to sleep. I know when I was at a violence against women's shelter, often people get up in the middle of the night and need that person to chat with.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes crisis happens in the night hours. So yeah, so having that avenue of support when you can't sleep or when you're a survivor and it's hard to shut your brain off or you're just feeling very heightened and anxious, to have that chat with trained people that can help you know, calm that in your mind. They have strategies and techniques that can just be there with you in the moment to lend that crucial support. Nighttime can be a very lonely time
Hmm.
for a lot of people. So you know, and it's a time where survivors especially are often triggered, you know, with memories or you know, flashbacks that pop up. So yeah, you know, and kudos to our volunteers for they're going to be willing to do overnight shifts, and I do know how that feels. So we do have the best volunteers, hands down, anywhere. We really do. So we'll be relying a lot on them.
Definitely. And we all know how much our mind likes to wander just before we're going to sleep. So, we'll even just like thinking about when you're by yourself, like sometimes your brain just doesn't shut off, and just being able to just get those thoughts out and speaking to someone can really help. It's not even just like that with their immediate stress, but it's also like their sleep. We know that like
Yeah.
sleeping is and eating is very important to survival, right? And so it
Mhm.
it, it really helps in uh it kind of has like that ripple effect of how reaching out to someone at any hour can really be something that's going to change someone's life, that's going to give them that support, to let them know
Hmm.
that someone is always there and listening and willing to listen. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, you have so much experience with this. What made you want to get involved with the Kawartha Sexual Assault Center and really the entire spectrum of sexual violence, violence against women, domestic violence, etc.?
Well, I love KSAC and everything we do.
Me
Um,
too.
yeah, KSAC is great because it addressed like the way that we do our work. We do it on all three levels. In social work, we call that micro, meso, and macro levels. So personal, one-on-one, community, which you do a lot of, Alicia. And then macro means fighting larger oppressive systems, which we also do really well, and advocating for equality within the criminal justice system. So I love that KSAC does all three, and it's you know, as a professional, as a social worker, it's a really rewarding experience to be here, because you know that the work you do here, it's going to make a difference on a larger level for survivors, but for our community and for our country and the world eventually in general, right? To fight against some of the injustice that survivors come up against and that women come up against. So, you know, in my professional and personal life, I found that women, especially, are incredibly resilient. They amaze me on a daily basis. The things that people go through and survive. So I always say that we learn more off our clients than we could ever teach them, and I really believe that. You know, so the amount of resiliency we see with our clients that we work with, and we're just kind of there. They already have the resilience, you know. Sometimes they don't recognize it, but they really do, and we're just there to help them along their healing journey. So for me, that's the rewarding part of working in this sector is, you know, to feel part of something bigger, and to fight these injustices, but also that one-on-one work to help people along their healing journey, because they didn't deserve what happens to them, but they're left to deal with what I call the residue of it. Right now I have to deal with this, and how do I do that? So a center like ours really helps give people the tools they need along their healing journey, and it's really exciting to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like we're laying out all the different tools, all the different paths that an individual can choose to take. And I think that's something that's really important with
Mhm.
KSAC, is that it is all about giving that agency back to the survivor. You know, not every single person that comes to our office wants to report. Not every single person wants to do expressive arts. Not every single person wants counseling. They just kind of need someone to talk to kind
Right.
of give that space and allow that and create that safe space for them to have that discussion, right? And so I think it's, you know, really powerful with our center that, you know, we really meet the clients where they are at. So speaking of
Absolutely.
meeting the clients where they are at, 24-hour texting. So right now it's only available during the workday.
Yeah.
When are we going to have that 24-hour texting line ready to go and launched?
Yeah, well, myself and our volunteer coordinator and administrator, Lindsay Hickey, who's fantastic and been here 9 years. So she's that was new territory for me, the technical part of working with our web designer and stuff. So we wanted to have a test phase because there's often glitches when you change to a new system, and there have been a few, so we're working those out. We would like it to be this coming Tuesday. Believe that's the 23rd. So we are just getting our volunteers lined up. We want to ensure we have coverage, right, for those times. And so yeah, that this Tuesday would be our goal. So if it is different, I will let you know. and Lisa, and we will send out an official announcement to say that we're 24/7. And I just wanted to say, like, the word crisis, right? It's a crisis text
It's
and web
scary.
chat line. Yeah, but in what institute a crisis could look different for me than you, right?
Yeah, like
So a
when
crisis isn't
I
just one thing.
yeah, when I hear the word crisis, I think like calling 911. Like you are
Exactly.
in crisis. You
Yeah.
need help now. Like that is kind of the initial thought that comes to my mind.
Hmm. And I like that it's called chat, like web chat, because it it takes that urgency, but our volunteers are trained to assess when we would require further help and limits to confidentiality and stuff like that if someone was in danger or if a child was involved. So our volunteers are trained on that, right? But normally what those are kind of rare instances,
Hmm.
and normally it's just like if you are triggered and having flashbacks as a survivor, emotionally and psychologically, your body is in a state of crisis, your mind is in a state because it's on high alert, right? um, and then too, like, just knowing to be with someone in the moment, that is what I consider crisis work. To
Hmm.
be present, like you said, very present in that space with that person in the moment. To me, that's what crisis work is about. And our volunteers who have done the chat, like Victoria, who you interviewed, they're very good at that, being in the moment and helping people to cope in the moment, right?
Hmm. Have you
Mhm.
noticed any themes with the texting line now versus pre-COVID? Has there been any kind of reoccurring things that are happening in this community?
I think, a lot of young people, especially when we think about students and stuff that have had to move back with their families, if one theme stands out to me, it's they didn't really want to do that. Many of them, probably have great families, but the ones that didn't want to, but were forced to do that, um, are experiencing some stressors, possibly in a situation that's more controlling that they were than what they were used to. So I find that the COVID situation, because it's something that affects the whole world, and all of us in general are on high alert, just walking down the street or going into a store. So if you have past trauma, a new thing like COVID can heighten that and bring other things back up. So again, I think it's very good timing that we're launching this during a time when people are in situations that they were forced to be in and not necessarily wanting to be in. So that's the biggest theme, is youth, especially, that don't want to live where they're living in particular. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what we see with the research and even current research, that young women between 18 to 25 that are in post-secondary education tend to experience higher rates of victimization of sexual trauma.
Right.
And now we're seeing some 15 to 18. So it's really that entire youth spectrum
Yeah.
experiences trauma. And so what if you've gone to you've driven 3 hours away and you're all the way up in Peterborough, and you unfortunately experienced this. And
Right.
at Trent University, they did the student voice survey, and what they found is that almost 1/3 of students have had non-consensual sex, so they have
Wow.
experienced rape. And
Mhm.
so imagine experience something in Peterborough. And I like to think that we're pretty well rounded with the supports that we provide.
Yeah.
And especially at Trent, where we're actually sending a counselor there to be there during the school year. But now you're
Mhm.
going home to a whole new environment. So you don't have those supports immediately available, and even your parents may not know what has happened to you. And so it's like, oh, I've got an appointment. And the first question your parents are going to ask are, oh, what's the appointment for? What's going on? Like, are you okay? And like, it can be so frustrating,
Mhm.
living with parents and essentially kind of almost living like a double kind of life in a way, where you have this experience that you're holding and you're not necessarily ready to tell your hometown about it. And, now all of a
Right.
sudden it's like, it's all there, right? You had to move back home and be with your parents. So I can definitely see that as a huge stressor with this change, with this shift, with this isolation that's happening.
Yeah, and one of the great things about any crisis line or text or a web chat is that it's anonymous, right? So a lot of people feel safe. That gives them a measure of safety, and I think that that's really important, right? And we would never ask for anybody's name, of course, on a anonymous chat line. So that anonymity gives them safety too, right? And like you were saying about that control. Well, this is an area where I can control. I can choose to reach out to someone. I can choose to remain anonymous, and I can choose to get this confidential but really good support, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, free, immediate, confidential support, whether it's through the phone line, whether it's through your texting, whether it's through the web chat. And I think that's really important.
Mhm.
I'm just curious, will the web chat be conjoined with the texting? So,
Yeah. So
okay, cool.
yeah, so that this is why we switched to a new user.
Mm,
So we wanted we wanted it to have ease of access for the chatters coming in, but also for our volunteers that are there providing the support. So yeah, it all comes in on one platform, and we can see if it's a text or a web chat. Just generates a random number, and then we respond to it. So I just want users out there to know that it still comes in anonymously.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think again that's really important, but we can respond all in one place, and that's why we chose this new platform. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, and I know one reason why we were really advocating for this was that, we had the texting available, and that, some clients at KSAC even have the texting, and those clinicians or counselors were receiving texting at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And the reason
Hmm.
for that is everyone's sleeping. So it's like, you
Yeah.
don't want to be on the phone while you're abuser or while you're in the unsafe situation while people are sleeping. That's the last thing you want to do is to wake people up with you
Right.
talking about what they've done to you in a way. um and so like I don't know if it's just me because I'm a little bit younger, but I feel like the texting is a really important feature to have. And when we're going to bed at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, the web we don't want to be on the phone.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that's just a youth thing, but sometimes we just like sliding into people's DMs consensually and just being like, hey, how are you? Oh, I can't sleep, lol.
Right. And yeah, so the using your phone can feel again like a safer space for people. And then even if they were using the web chat, just so you know, like on our, I don't know if you can see this,
Mm-hmm.
but it's Kawartha sexual assault, and our web chat icon is now above the 1-800 number. Okay, just so you know, that's how you get in to our web chat. And then on our main KSAC page, our text line number is there in bold too. But there's also here, there's a leave site now or hide your visit on your phone or on a laptop. So say if you were chatting and someone did come into the room, you could click on that hide your visit or leave site now, and then no one would be able to see what you were doing. So just because we're on the topic of safety and confidentiality, that is a nice option that our website has.
I
Right?
believe, yeah, it just takes you, the leave site now essentially just takes you to a whole nother website. So in a
Yeah,
way,
or just Google or
yeah,
whatever.
so it just kind of
Yeah.
like immediately takes you away. And so why is something like that important?
Yeah, well, yeah, because if you were sitting there chatting, and if you, what I know from working in the violence against women sector is if you're living with someone very controlling, they tend to control a lot of aspects of your life. So think about a person that may check your phone, right? And we'll be encouraging people to delete the conversations off their phone for their own safety. But also the hide your visit too, right? So then people wouldn't be able to see what you had visited. So yeah, because we know that violence and abuse is all about power and control, right? That's what it boils down to. So again, having safe avenues and options, KSAC, we're all about options and like you said, autonomy and what works for you as a survivor.
Mm-hmm. I always love just blaming it on other people. Like, oh, my best friend had me look this up because they said that there was this really cool TikTok, but I couldn't find it, so I left it. Like, I just love, like, blame it all on
Yeah.
me. Just say that there was a cool TikTok on there and that you were just trying to find it. But yeah,
Right.
that's always
Alicia's
a
TikTok.
strategy I like.
Yeah, and there's things you can do, but again, accessibility. We
Hmm.
just want to be as accessible as we can and give many avenues for people to reach out. And our number, our 1-800 number is still free. We do get people calling in on the crisis line, new people. And so what happens on the crisis line, and this can also happen on the web chat and text, is it can often lead to what we call a request for service. So, if it leads into, hey, do you need further support? Then it's another avenue to get connected with our amazing center and the many things that we offer here. So a lot of times people will say, oh, hey, I didn't know you offered that. That is fantastic. So when we at KSAC say you are not alone, we we actually really mean that, and we create avenues so that you can actually feel like you're not alone, right? And that is for survivors, knowing that they're not alone. Someone is in their corner. I like to call it being in your corner, and we are going to be alongside you and walk this journey with you. Another thing I wanted to say is I want to recognize how very brave and courageous it is for survivors to reach out. The crisis line and the text and the chat, oftentimes that's people's first time ever opening up about historic childhood abuse or recent abuse. And right, Alicia, how very brave that is. And we always acknowledge that, and we really mean that. We know the courage it takes to reach out for the very first time. So a lot of times on our phone line, people, it's their very first time talking about it. It
Or
could be,
maybe
yeah.
it's not their first time talking about it, but maybe it's the first time that they're believed.
Yes, that is. Absolutely, right? And that's one of the things we say too, you're not alone, and we believe you. Those are really powerful words when we look at what's happened in the news and women not being believed, right? So in as far as the crisis line, we consider the Me Too movement, we saw a surge of people, women in their 50s, like myself, 40s, 50s, 60s, that a long time ago when it happened were not believed, right? They weren't even believed by family members. So that, you're right, Alicia, is incredibly validating to finally be believed.
Hmm. And people have talked to me about stuff that they experienced in their childhood. So a long time ago, and there's no statute of limitations in Ontario and in
Right.
Canada. You're able to talk about sexual violence and report sexual violence even years after it happened. We're seeing it with
Yeah.
that 70s show guy from
Yeah, I just
2001 to
saw that.
2003. And so many people are just like, really, like, finally, in a way. Like, I know for me, I had to go back and like check the date to see if it was recent,
Yeah.
because like known about this stuff for so long. But it almost like it I've just seen when people talk to me about historical trauma, and I'm just like, yeah, I believe you.
Mhm.
I'm so sorry that happened. It's almost just like a, really? Like,
Yeah.
you believe me? And I'm just like, of
Mhm.
course I do. Like, that's what's happened. That's your experience. That is something that you're talking about, and I'm 100% here for you. And
Yeah.
here's all the supports, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it's so important that we have a variety of supports. And so let's just say someone talks to you about something that has happened to them.
Mhm.
Can you access KSAC services if you're not a survivor or victim yourself?
Yeah, so we, oftentimes we'll get, parents might call in on behalf of something their child has opened up about. And then we would make the right referrals for that family, definitely. Oftentimes, if someone opens up to their partner um, may need direction and help on how to navigate that. How do I lend support, right? So we did have a group for parents and partners that will hopefully get online or figure out a way to do again. But yeah, if you're wanting to lend that support. Also, we're here on our chat. We get a lot of different things. So it's violence against women, essentially, right? We know that 1 in 3 women experience this. So I often think about that when I'm in a room full of women. It goes through my head. Wow, like, if there's 24 of us, that means probably 8 or more that have experienced some form of violence or sexual violence. So yeah, we have supports for parents and partners, but also if you're needing, strategies, grounding strategies, things like that, right? Our volunteers are pretty brilliant at that, offering those supports. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the to access KSAC supports doesn't necessarily you need KSAC services, right? Like, if someone reaches out to you and you're like, not sure what to say, not sure what to do, maybe reaching out to KSAC is going to connect you to those local resources. And I love how connected we are with our community and those community resources, whether it's like shelter services, whether it's
Yeah.
food, whether it's accompaniment to court services, whether
Mhm.
it's actually counseling, but maybe for something different, right? Like, we're able to connect people to those services, and I think that's so super important.
And our volunteers are armed with a great resource sheet, and also too, if our volunteers were on a chat and needed extra support, we have backup people that they can call. So long story short, like whatever we need to do to support you, we will find a way to do it.
Mhm.
Here at KSAC, and again, like you said, but you get to decide, right, what support you want. And again, a lot of women that have been through violence have had a lot of control taken from them, so, and a lot of power. So it's a place to get that control back, at least start to, and yeah, feel empowered of it, along your journey. along your healing journey. So
I know we've been talking about our texting line, but there are people out there that don't have access to a phone. There are
yeah.
people out there that don't necessarily have access to texting because of their partner checking
Mhm.
their text messages 24/7. What
Yeah.
kind of resources does KSAC have for people who aren't necessarily connected to those online supports? They don't necessarily have a phone. What does KSAC offer?
So if you didn't have a phone, but you needed to contact the center, right? Because our number is 1-866, you know, if you needed to use somebody else's phone, I don't know if payphones exist anymore. But you know, I love that it's 1-866 and it's 24/7. So it's not a paid service that you would necessarily need. Of course, when we're open in person, people, which I hope, I don't know when that would be, but people often walk into the center too, right? So if you didn't have a phone or internet or any of those things, we think about women in, you know, very vulnerable situations. We've often had walk-ins seeking requests for services, so that point of contact too. We're very welcoming. We're really, it's just so lovely here
What about
in our
the
office.
packages that you've been doing?
Yes, so that was on my mind too. So it's interesting. I felt like I was doing snail mail back in the 90s. So here at KSAC, I created and facilitated a grounding workshop. So I've really missed doing that. It's something, Alicia, that if you were on a wait list as a survivor seeking one-to-one counseling, that you could come in and just go to this grounding intro and acquire some skills while you're waiting for that support. So I just turned it into like a grounding package. And we've been mailing those out to people. We've got some great little stickers and tattoos, encouraging, you know, temporary tattoos, coloring sheets. And we've had some really great feedback. Some of the people I mailed it don't have the internet. You know, my mom's in her 70s. She's still scared of the computer. I wish she would get it, but yeah, so some of our older clients, and you know, they've called and given some great feedback on the grounding packages that we're mailing out. So yeah, that is another option, right?
Mhm. Tracey, thank you so much for joining the live stream
Mhm.
today. Do you
You're
have
welcome.
any last words of support or advice for survivors out there, or maybe even friends of survivors?
Yeah, just again, I admire your courage. I admire your bravery. Please, if you're feeling like you've been wanting to reach out, but something has stopped you, please know we are 150% here for you through these many avenues of support. And even though our agency is closed, again, we're still, you know, pursuing the many avenues of how to be here for you. When you do reach out, you will get an empathetic, compassionate, trained person, trained specifically in, you know, how to support survivors of sexual violence. So we will 100% walk with you and beside you. And please know you're not alone, and we will believe you.
We'll
Our
walk with
text,
you, we'll skip with you, we'll swim
that's
with
right.
you, we'll run
Whatever.
backwards.
Somersault.
I don't know, we'll somersault through the hallways when our boss isn't
Right.
there with you.
Yeah. And our text number is 705 710-5234. Kawartha Sexual Assault Center.com. So yeah, and just go to our website if you have access to the internet. And our texts, our 24 crisis support line is 1-866-298-7778. Above that number, you'll see our little web chat icon, and that's how you get into it. It looks a little different than it did before. Also on our website, when you see that big tech support number in purple, that's actually a slider bar. So if you click on the arrow and slide, it'll tell you everything we're offering Monday to Friday, and you too, Alicia, what you're doing. So yeah, that's often what we tell chatters or texters, is to check out our website and see the different supports there. And we'll be putting more things onto our website as well. So we are 150% here for you. Okay. We want everyone
Amazing.
to know that.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and thank
Thank
you
you for
everyone
having me.
for joining us today. We've had a good audience. Oh, just getting it under the wire here. Christina, Chrissy said, "This is awesome. I'm glad I caught the end of it. You did a great job, ladies. Much love, big hearts. Thank you for being you." No, thank you
That's
to the
awesome.
survivors.
That's
Um, we
awesome.
have such an incredible community in the 4 counties we serve: Peterborough, Kawartha
Yeah.
Lakes, Haliburton, and Northumberland. And they've been nothing but grateful and open arms to us. And, I think there's a lot more changes coming in terms of how we listen to and believe survivors, and how we support survivors at whatever stage that they're at. And, I it's unfortunate it does happen here, but I'm really proud of our community. I
Mhm.
personally also run the mending program, and I'm proud to see a lot of the men really wanting to step up and
Yeah.
to make a difference, right? And it
Yes,
can
that's so
feel
exciting.
it can feel really crummy to hear that, your gender is guilty of perpetuating 97% of sexual assaults. And
Yeah.
so to take that as a leadership opportunity and not something to defend and say, well, not me, like this involves you in some capacity. And it's been really amazing to see the
Yes.
leadership and men stepping up to this as well in the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, and being part of the solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do need them to be part of the solution, not to take over. We've had enough of that, but to be part of the solution. And then that's another thing that's beautiful about KSAC is that mending program. It's unique and it's so necessary. So thank you, Alicia, for the work you're doing with that. Incredibly important.
Amazing. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. Thank you for the lovely comments. Uh, every Friday we've got Expressive Arts with Ale happening. It's been a stream filled with dancing, singing, writing. We had tarot cards
I know.
being
It's
read as
great.
well, poem writing, and to watch the survivors coming forward, especially on the Instagram, where people can join and show their art,
Yeah,
has just been beautiful, and people have been tuning in from all over the world. So it's
that is amazing. Yeah.
really been incredible too. Like, we're a worldwide small community is how I like to
Yeah, yeah, that's a
say
really
it.
good way to put it, actually. Yeah, I like that.
Amazing. Well, thank everyone so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. See you later.